Gary, disappointing 1-0 home defeat to Cray Wanderers today. What's your take on the game?
Look, it's really been the makeup of our season really, that we've not put together performances over the whole course of the duration of the game. I think it's been in isolation. I think if you go back to game 2, I thought game 1, look, it was the home game, it was our first fixture. I think we deserved to win. We wasn't perfect, but we deserved to win on the day. I think game 2, the game got away from us and we wasn't very good first half, but I thought we was excellent second half. I think game 3, you can see that there was a carry on really from how good we were in that second period against Dartford, and I thought for 60 minutes we were very good against Carshalton and really should have been 3 or 4 goals to the good. Again, it wasn't a perfect performance, but it was a performance that warranted us being in front. But a moment of madness sees us behind, and we get sent off, and there's then the game gets away from us. But for today, again, we'd honed in and worked on a lot of bits this week to try and instill some performance levels and some standards into the players and requirements into the players. And I thought on the whole, for 60 minutes, Lee, we were excellent. I thought we totally dominated the first half. We were in the ascendancy second half. I think how we're not 2 or 3 goals to the good with the the real big chances that presented themselves to us first half is beyond me. Maybe there's not enough responsibility or not enough efficiency or whatever it be, but we're not getting our noses in front when our performances are warranting it. We then see the game seem to go in our favour when a man gets sent off. They go down to 10 men. They have to make a change, but it sees them sit in as 2 banks of 4, and it makes it pretty difficult. And we pushed and probed and asked questions, but we just didn't have the answers, and it's really disappointing with the amount of quality that we've got on the pitch. I don't think we're getting the levels of performance that is required and expected out of some of them. I still feel that there's some players underperforming, and we're trying to find the right levels out of them. But the last half hour really disappointed me. More likely one of my more disappointing 30 minutes, because I expected us to go on and win it. But like in all of these games, they're not easy, Lee. A team goes down to 10, they raise it all over the pitch, they show that little bit more resilience and togetherness, and they dig in, and we just never had the key to unlock them, and that is disappointing, because we've got the players to do it, and they just never performed, never got to where they needed to be. And to concede the goal we conceded is criminal. There's players with responsibilities and duties, and they're given their jobs, and someone just hasn't carried that out today. We give an absolute needless free kick away as well. I thought it was a ridiculous free kick to give away, and then someone doesn't do their job. It doesn't need me to come on camera to say that, but hang that player out to dry. But it's disappointing, and we end up then chasing the game. They can sit in as they did, and we didn't really create anything other than a couple of little moments towards the end. But we then started to force it, and what I don't want to hear is that we're a hoofball team, which is what some of the comments were being said. That is not the type of football that we represent. And yes, when you're chasing the game in the last 5-8 minutes to try and recover it, then sometimes you go a little bit longer. But if you watch the game and the game in its entirety, you will see there wasn't too many long balls.
I think it was a bit of a disappointing second half, particularly with them getting a red card. You'd normally think you could go on and do something there. What do you think was the blockage there?
Well, how often do you see that though, Lee? How often do you see a team dig in when they go down to 10 men and make it extremely difficult for the opposition? We have to deal with that here anyway. Everybody who comes through the gates of this football club seem to find another level. We've had to deal with that since we've been in the building, but I'm not the only manager that's had to deal with that. There's been plenty before me, and we've overcome that in my first 2 years. Took a bit of time in year 1, but we definitely overcome it in year 2, and we've got to overcome it again in this campaign. We're struggling at the moment to find some fluency and some fluidity in the performance. I get that. we're still, as I say, dominating large parts of the game and really should be getting ourselves out in front, which will, take the anxiety out of our performance. I think that is something that, it looks like at times we're suffocating, and I don't expect that from the group of players we've got. We just look like we're not quite where we need to be. There's a lot of superstars out there, in regards to levels and standards and careers that they've had, and they're not quite giving superstar performances at the moment. Is that a bit to do with I'm waiting for my mate to take responsibility. I'm waiting for him to get the game by the scruff of the neck because I know he's capable of it. Well, no, it's, someone has got to get games by the scruff of the neck. We didn't get enough in the wide areas today. We went with a different formula in them areas. We've gone with two, bodies up front today to try and give us something a bit different. And as I've just said to you, for 60, 65 minutes or however long it was, we were the better team. We were the team that should really have been 2 or 3 goals in front. I mean, we've played 4 games of football now, and I'd be hard pushed to try and remember, a moment where Sam Donkin's been really stretched and really worked. A game again today, but we've managed to find a way, and I've just said that to the chaps in the change room after. At the moment we've got the ability to find a way to not get a result, even when we're dominant in large periods. We've give up cheap goals, really cheap goals. There was a cheap goal where we give up possession on the halfway line. 2 seconds later at Carshalton, it's a goal down. We give up a really cheap free kick today. We end up, conceding again. We've got to iron that out to start with, because if the game's 0-0 and we're not chasing from behind, there's maybe not as much anxiety in our performance. But we've got to find a way. The change room is in a vulnerable position at the moment, all of the players in there, because we're not quite getting the results. But that goes, I'm part of the changing room. I don't, detach myself from it, be it when we're being successful or when we're being unsuccessful. We are all in this together as a changing room, and we've got to find a solution. We've got to find a balance within the team. I think that is something that's going to be a big challenge of mine, that we've got so many good players, so many players in with giving us options beyond, and I can only thank the board for that. I mean, the signing of Joe Taylor this week, we haven't seen the best of him today, but he's been a bit shy of what's required in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks at Hornchurch, but we wanted to get him up and running. But the support of the board with that one gives us another option. But we've got to find a solution, a balance, a system, a level of play. We tried it last week with 4 big hitters. We've tried it again today in a slightly different format, and still haven't quite got it right. So we've got to, pick the bones out of today, get ourselves focused on Monday, because Monday becomes a must-win. I think that is something that, within our season we felt, these first 5, 6, 8 games were key. We've had a big transition in players. I think there's been a big turnover in players, and we're still looking to try and find the best formation within that group. But, that's because performances and results haven't quite been where they need to be. I think if we'd have been, as I say, a little more efficient and a bit more ruthless when we've been on top in the games, then I think the team would have been a little more settled, and we wouldn't be so judgmental of it at the moment. And it's up to us as a management team to get that right.
Does today's performance give you food for thought for your selection for the team on Monday?
Yeah, it totally does, Lee. I think, as I've just said, vulnerability is within us all. We've got to find a way, and team selection, team shape. Is when you've had a defeat, and such a disappointing defeat on the back of last week's disappointment. Yes, it does. It gives you plenty of food for thought, and we've got, as I say, we've got to find a way, and we've got to find a way quickly. We have a huge game on Monday, and we know that we need to be better than we were in the last half hour. If we can be more efficient and more clinical as we played in the first 60 minutes today, then we won't have a problem. That is the bottom line, but we still haven't quite got that formula yet, as I've just said to you, and today's result and today's performance, as I say, gives us another headache with team selection, because when you're in this position, when you're in a management position, you want the team to nearly select itself on performance, and I'm not seeing that from not too many players, and that is something that I've just shared with a group. Get the shirt, earn the shirt, keep the shirt on your back, and that only happens with performances and outcomes in terms of assists, goals, or clean sheets, and we're getting neither at the moment. So yeah, we'll have to make sure we make some changes Monday, and there will be changes, and try and get it right.
There was a lot of disappointed people in the stadium with the result today. Clearly, there was some noise from the supporters afterwards. I saw you go over and intervene. Yeah. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's frustration with us all, Lee, and I think when we're at home more so, because the expectation is much greater at home. It comes with greater pressure, and I get the noise and the wrath of the fans, and I totally do. It's a football club that is renowned for that, is making sure that be it management, be it players, be it opposition, their feelings are known. And all I asked, and that's what I went over to say after, I've been very much with them, and they've been very much with me over the course of my whole tenure, but I just felt they were being a little bit disrespectful to players. Put it on my shoulders, aim it at me. If they've got disappointment or anger or frustration, aim it at me or the management team. Try and keep the players in the right mindset. And some of what was being said to a player or two I just didn't like, so I just went over and politely asked there was one individual, but I politely asked, just be respectful. I get that there's disappointment with that last half hour. We should have gone on and won the game, Lee, but please be respectful and stay with the players. Take their anger and frustration out on me.
Thanks very much, Gary.
You're welcome.